Well, welcome everyone to our Inventory Champions podcast series. Man, Barry, I'm so excited about this. I think we need to start out and tell everyone this is not a normal podcast where you and I just chat about the weather for the first 5 minutes. We really are laser focused. It's an educational podcast series, right? And it's targeted at the inventory heroes, the inventory analysts. You and I used to be buyers, right? In the wholesale and retail world. And if we don't give them great value every time, we're not doing it right. And we have a great lineup of people that'll be involved. You and I have talked about our galaxy of inventory champions. And we are inventory champions, but we're doing it with and for the inventory champions out there in the industry. And since you are known as the voice of inventory management.
Yeah, this picture right here, and I know there's some probably listening in the car. When you get back to your office or home, download this, you'll see this picture. It's pretty inspiring for us because you see a team of experts, which we don't really like to throw that term around that much. But I think this slide, we are. We love this world. We've been living in it for many, many years now, and we have a great passion for it. But as we deliver these podcast series, we're going to be able to deliver for the executive level, for the inventory analyst, and then the managers in between. So it hits all those audiences at a number of different depth levels, and you're going to see just some awesomeness throughout the series.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that is why when you and I sat down and picked the initial group, so we're launching these first 6 as kind of a series within the whole, series structure. These 6, Barry, to your point, they're not just for the heads down inventory analysts, and they're not just for the executive. They're for each member of the audience, because these folks need to come together, right? The more they come together, that's when results happen.
Yeah.
So we're starting with our favorite, and we're starting with one that people request all the time. And this is called We Need Cash. When somebody runs down the hall and just says, we need to drop inventory 10%, like now or yesterday. We thought we'd start with that one, but the rest of these all align, we think, to set you up for 2025, your best year yet, and then beyond that. But this is a great way to start it. So I'm going to start here. And, we've labeled on here and for folks listening in the car or something, make sure, as Barry said, you download that PDF, because we have about 6 different main points we're going to make. But this first main point really covers everything. And Barry, you remember back in the E3 days, and I remember my first week at E3 back in 1986, the founder there, Anders, he made this statement, never forgotten it. It's so critical. And again, even every executive should know this. The key to lowering inventory is not to buy less inventory. It's to buy later. And that's a breakthrough statement. And they're going to feel this as we go through these different suggestions and slides. And then later on, we'll come back to another episode at some point. Obviously, the key to increasing service, is to buy earlier, not just to buy more.
Yeah. And it's amazing, Dan, that these 2 statements are, they are foundational. They are the bedrock when you're talking about really managing your inventory, but certainly when you have to trim inventory or do it properly. Really, this is a strategy.
It is. And
look at this.
Yeah. Once they don't see what's happening. And
yeah,
you and I know that everybody should have the depletion graph up on their wall to kind of see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And if we want to summarize, in 90% plus of the really good inventory analysts out there, here's what happens. Here's what happens when you're buying early. And if you don't see it in this picture, by the way, which is why it doesn't bother you that much. When you see it in the picture, that's when you say, wow, because you're thinking that the item or items are going to hit their item order point or low stock point, hopefully do it pretty well together. And when that happens, they'll buy back up to the order up to level. Kind of like when they hit the min, go up to the max. That nice, beautiful picture doesn't happen as often as you think. It doesn't look like this like we want. We're showing a picture with all these items hitting their item order point, going up to the order up to level. But Barry, the reality is this, maybe the bunch of items is about halfway down maybe one or two have crossed the line, or something has triggered that fear in you, and you go ahead and buy. And when you do, you're not buying to the order up to level because of pack sizes, different things. You way overshoot it, and the goods just live way up above. They live days and many days up above that order up to level. Isn't that the main thing happening in most people's worlds?
Oh my gosh. If each system that we've used through the years, if you had a picture of this that showed right next to the vendor that you're buying, the vendor location and the items, it would be very eye-opening. Now, we have some pictures that we can show you, but can you imagine just having it right there side by side? Because I think it would really dictate the strategy and the effort that you put into making sure that you're balanced. It would tell you, hey, you're not doing a great job without saying anything other than just showing you the picture.
If you saw this picture, you would challenge the order, wouldn't you? You would not just simply hit the accept button. So what do you do about that? We want to get everybody into a mode of watching this and measuring. And the first suggestion we're going to make on how to measure is a value that some people measure, but not enough. And that is the overstock percentage. Now, just for everyone, if you're using an advanced system, then your overstock value is true. It's making sense because it understands seasonality, the unique safety stock and order cycle of every item. It knows all of that. Right. So it knows what true overstock is. And when it turns it to a percentage, now you have a measurement against others on your team, against yourself. And Barry, we're showing a picture of a pretty sizable team. Some are down at 3, 7, 6% overstock. Some are up in the 20s. Some are in the 30s, the high 30s. And that's common, isn't it?
It is. And you can see this. I mean, this is telling us the story right here. Who is actively working and paying attention to their overstock percentage? You can see very clearly here, there are some who are the star performers.
Yeah.
And then there's some, we know this team here. So, we know certain buyers and we know, okay, this is this guy and that's that girl. And we know them because we know their personality. We know they work the formula. But then the others, just they haven't really bought into to properly managing the overstock, and it shows. But this picture right here, it jumps off the page at you.
It does. And look at those around 10%, because we drew that 10% line. We often call that par. Are you above par? Are you below par? And there have been individuals, when they see they're at 13 and they know they're in striking distance, they'll challenge orders, they'll refine components, they'll do things. Then they get to 10, then they get to 8, then they get to 6. And then it's like because of that momentum, they get stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's much like, sometimes when you walk and you have a step counter and you have the steps you're trying to hit, or you have a weight you're trying to hit, you get on every day. And when it's going well, it inspires you to keep doing it really well. And this is what we want everyone to do. Managers, executives, start to look and see, hey, let's get together and see what our values are. And let's set some initial goals. Maybe some of these folks need to get to 20 and then to 15 and then to 10. And we realize the pandemic is still causing a little disruption for some. Here is a picture of a company was doing really well, Barry. You remember them because they had been actually well above 20. They got it below 20. They got it to 15 with about half the team at 10 or below. Pandemic hits, chaos, overstock goes to 50. And a couple of years now, they're chasing it to get it down, but they're doing well. And they've actually, since that end of December 23, have gotten it, back to normal. But it's great. Look at the history of just knowing here's what our life has been.
Well, then seeing that history is amazing because you're able to see, hey, here's when we were really hitting our stride. Here's when things went sideways. And although here we are fast forward and we have done a really good job of trimming the overstock down, percentage down from where it was when it was sideways. Mm-hmm. And because you have history on your side, you may look at this at the very end and say, wow, okay, 25. Yeah, man, look, we've cut it in half. It was 50% several years ago. You're still not there because look before that, 15, 18, 16, that's where you need to be. So the history on your side helps you to then realize, okay, there's more to do. On top of that, I'll say this, guys. Dan mentioned a word a minute ago, challenging the orders. He said it and it just boom, went by. And some of you may not have really latched onto that, but you really need to, because challenging the orders is what you should be doing, because you will find these nuggets along the way and be able to hit the bottom line in ways you haven't once you change your mentality, change your mindset a bit.
That's right. If you bought 5 days ago on an order cycle of 15 days and it's popping up, there's a reason. Something's not right. So go challenge, fix the issue long term. And yeah, great point. Okay, number 2 on the list, Barry, is these components.
yeah.
We have a whole separate session in this group of 6 podcasts on these 10 numbers, but we'll hit them slightly here. And the main one is this: what is 1 day of inventory in your world? You should know it for the company. You should know it for your lines. For this company, it's basically 1 day is $7 million. So why is that critical? Well, remember a minute ago, we said if we are overbuying, if we're buying too early and we're overbuying, we're buying way past the order up to level. In this case, this group is 11 days. Their inventory sits 11 days above the order up to level. That's where the balance is. That is about $77 million. And for every day you can bring that down, if you work the team, work that overstock, get this number down to 11, 10, 8, 7, 6, you're dropping 7 million every time one value goes down. We want to know these other values as well, safety stock, lead time, order cycle, but start with that one, right?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, this flows with everything that we talk about when we talk with teams, executives, and it has to do with thinking financially in everything you do. When you think financially in everything you do, it makes your decision-making better. And then you have to quantify what thinking financially means. And 1 day of inventory is a perfect place to start, because it helps you understand when you make an adjustment to, or you trim days off, what do those days equate to in terms of dollars, in terms of cash? And that's a perfect place for you to go.
It is. And, we're going to hit the components, but as we do, look at these. This is a company where the safety stock is 12 days, and that's taking all of their items and saying, what's the average dollar weighted safety stock? 12 is the safety stock, 21 is the lead time. But there may be some falsehood there, because as we suggest, as we look at these components within the 7 steps of buying, this is always our framework. This is always our checklist for good and for bad. Lead time has been all over in the last few years for all industries. Here's an industry in heating and air conditioning where they normally look at it by supplier, but they want to see just overall all suppliers. Well, we were real good back here in the 20s or below 20s. It went to the high 40s and then started to drop. Well, here's what often happens. If this drops to 25 days, if you're truly at about a 25-day lead time and you're still living at 40 out of fear, that's 15 additional days. And you say, well, that's lead time. Well, no, because you don't really need it, because that's not true. It's actually additional safety stock. That's 15 days additional safety stock times that 6.9 number. It's a tremendous amount, which is why, Barry, as we say, seeing this visually is critical so that you can keep your lead time not cushioned too much.
Well, you're right, Dan. And guys, how often have we tied up inventory out of fear? We throw common sense and the facts out the window, and we let fear rule our world sometimes. And we do that with lead time because it's easy to cushion. It's easy to hide that. But in this example right here, they peaked out at 47 days. Well, guess what, guys? Like Dan was saying, don't look at it in terms of lead time. Look at it in terms of safety stock and additional money you have to invest. And when lead times are 45 days and higher, that component becomes the biggest influencer of your safety stock. So hiding it might keep the noise level down, but it keeps the cash flow really, really low.
So you just said a double whammy. It's a double whammy. Not only does it drive the safety stock up, but cushion lead time is a safety stock. So not only you're putting fake safety stock, you're cushioning it on top because that higher number drives the safety stock up. That's a great point. So that's the lead time. Now, this point here, this point is kind of number 4. You know, we said, hey, we're about 11 days above, right? We're sitting about 11 days above our order up 2 level. That's where our balance is. That's a lot of money. And that's that topping off that we opened the show with. And that's due to buying multiples. And that buying multiple, here's the tricky part, Barry. Keep in mind, right? We expect buying multiples are real and you've thought them through, and thus they won't influence the overstock or overstock percentage.
Right.
That's kind of like hiding. You might say, my overstock is 10%. Yes, but your buying multiples used to be about an average of 7 days, and they're now averaging 14 days.
Yeah.
You just keep running to higher amounts.
Yeah.
You're getting intimidated by the warehouse. Maybe you're parking back there, walking through. That can be a mistake.
Yeah.
They're not happy. So knowing that number, we have seen some of the best inventory reductions by people realizing, wow, we are overshooting in a big way because our buying multiples are so high.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, you got to have a good high-low strategy. You got to make sure that for the obvious ones, high demand items, okay, maybe we should be buying in layers and pallets, but let's don't take that same strategy for the slow selling items and buying in a pallet quantity, because it's easier to handle. And there's a balance there, and that scale is tipped the other way.
Yeah.
So just having the awareness to say, you know what, let's look at the strategy we're using, if we have a strategy at all with multiples, and let's get serious about it. And let's throw that word out there again, Dan, challenge. Let's challenge ourselves to make sure that we have a good high-low strategy when we're attacking these multiples.
In the last couple of years, these have been in the top 3 requested dashboards from us, helping them suggest what the smartest buying multiple should be, item by item. And to see a picture like this to make sure it's cascading down. And like you said, Barry, the fast movers,
Right,
that we are pretty lean on those buying multiples. It might be a pallet, but in days, it might be hopefully 2-3 days supply. So
yeah,
this is number 4 to hit.
yeah, that's a fun one too. That's a very fun one for us to dive into.
It is, because of the success that we've seen companies have.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
So here's one, demand forecasting. Yes, it's number 1 on the 7 steps list. What we're saying here is, hey, don't overlook something as basic as seasonal excellence, because, even if you're not in an industry that has extreme seasons like HVAC, you still have seasonality. And if it's 10% or so, yeah, you might get by with okay service without the right seasonal forecast or seasonal profile, we sometimes call them. But
Yeah.
how much more efficient could you be? How much lower could your safety stock be if your system understood, oh, there's actually seasonality here as well? Because otherwise, we think we're going to sell this way and it actually sells this way. And that's extra inventory that we never needed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is the last area, as we say, of mastery.
Yeah.
So even if you have a solution that enables you to identify these seasonal items and apply the proper profile curves going into and out of season,
Mm-hmm.
it still doesn't mean that everything you set it and you're done and you're good. No, it's an area that you need to challenge. You need to watch it. You need to make sure you have the right, the right settings for these items that have profiles or items that don't. Plenty of opportunity there, but again, it's that area that is a last area of mastery generally for all customers.
And if I'm an analyst, if I'm the president of a company, I want to know this. If we have 10% of our items profiled, what do the others in our industry have? If they have 40%, I'm missing.
Right.
I'm the one behind. So, benchmarking across the industry, very, very strong idea. You're always making yourself stronger. Speaking of which,
Right.
kind of our last main piece is, think of those 7 steps, Barry. The more you make sure every one of those is strong, the more you challenge orders, the more you do everything you were taught to do to begin with. And you might say, you know what, a year ago, I was hitting on all cylinders, but I've gotten a little bit sloppy. Well, here's how you know. When you're doing really well and following all the rules, your lines are balanced. This is a large vendor line. Each one of these little colors is an item. And I have a lot of items that are between 0 and 10 days delay, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. This is a nice, pretty balanced line. It's going to do its thing well. Here's another line. It's also a large line. Man, stuff is all over the place. And yeah, some of it's due to buying multiples, but really this unbalanced line is a concern. If you find yourself buying 2-3 times as often as you're supposed to, this is likely what's happening. And it could be any or multiple of those 7 steps that are off.
Absolutely. You know, there's 2 different personality styles actively at work with these 2. There's up top where it's balanced. I mean, it's clean. It says, I have a strategy. It says, I'm kind of hands off. Doesn't mean I don't look at it, but I'm mostly hands off. Unbalanced, no strategy. I'm definitely in the weeds. I need to look at it. I need to apply my expertise to these items to let them know how they should be doing. And what happens is when you're unbalanced like this, it happens times, okay, then you can get things back in line. But if it happens 1 or 2 times and it goes on again and again and again with these lines and these lines, it becomes this, it becomes this routine that you get into. You get trapped.
Yeah.
And you think you're doing well, but you're not, because you're down in the weeds and you're spending more time. Your time's all thrown off because now you're unbalanced. Your style is unbalanced. The line's unbalanced. Yeah. It is this huge snowball, just gets this momentum, and you can't get out of this very easily until you're aware of it.
And you know what the good ones do? The champion analysts, they'll look at their top 15 lines and they'll look at the little graph and they'll see for each line what the plus minus order up 2 level is. And the ones that are real high, they'll go in and say, what's going on? How am I going to get them down there? It's a great way to do it. And here's our summary sheet from the 7 steps. And if you're driving in the car, definitely download this one. So, we said demand forecasting, seasonal excellence is a key. Lead time, trim that cushion of fear, right? Order cycle, that buying multiple management, that's got to be one of the top 3 things you do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good high-low strategy there.
And we didn't even say it, but it's obvious. Setting your service strategy, just make sure it makes sense. Find mismatches. We'll hit that on another podcast. And mainly, stop buying early. Stop buying early. That's the main thing people are doing. And we've got some tools to help you, kind of get through that. The others we'll get to later. Forward buy effect. If you're truly out of cash, we can limit the forward buys. Most people know how to do that. If not, help is on the way for that. So print this one off. That's our suggestion, right? Print this off, sit around the table with the team, invite in members of management that you want, and say, here's how we're going to hit it. Because they're going to want to know, hey, I asked you to drop inventory 10%. How are you going to do it?
Yeah. And look at that one right there, just about in the middle. Know your 1 day of inventory value.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Know that one. If you don't know that one, do whatever it takes to find out what that is, because that is the first step in helping you to think financially in everything that you do.
And Barry, as you say that, think of it. You have that meeting, you show that you know that value, that gives that person that's asking you to do it confidence. Right. That you're on a path, that you know how to do it.
Absolutely.
So this one's for those heroes that are suddenly asked this. Don't panic when it's asked. You can do it. It helps on the way. We'll have other podcasts that'll hit different areas of how to do it. And we feel pretty good within about 2 normal lead times in your world, you're going to start to see some strong inventory reduction that's not temporary.
Yeah, it's possible.
Critical.
Just execute the game plan here.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Thanks, everyone. Tune into the other ones. Pass these along. Request some ideas, right? Give us feedback, and let's all just get smarter.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.